Vintage Brand is the story of American sporting culture, combining our rich history, traditions, rituals, and pageantry. Weaving together more than a century of American sports memories and images, it defines what tradition really means. Come experience the history and rituals. Remember and honor the legends. Feel the passion and pageantry of the past. Welcome to the greatest collection of American sports history and images, all reproduced on fan apparel and merchandise. Welcome to Vintage Brand.
Hey, welcome everyone to this week's episode of The Games People Play with Bernie Corbett. As I say, I remain Bernie Corbett. I'm still Bernie Corbett, as I was last week, and hopefully we'll be again next week. Very pleased to have with us this week. Once again, it seems like we're spending a lot of time in Springfield on the show, and a lot of time with our infatuation with not just the NBA, but the ABA. Folks that follow The Games People Play know we've had Spencer Hayward on recently, and today we are very pleased to have pulling into the station right now the man known as the A-Train, Artis Gilmore. Artis, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Artis, Hall of Famer, 2011. We'll be talking about that. Certainly it took a while, but maybe more appreciative of the fact that it did happen in 2011. And 11-time professional All-Star. When you look at a career that really had almost an even split in his All-Star recognition with 5 straight years in the ABA out of Jacksonville, winning a championship in the ABA with the Kentucky Colonels, and then 6 times an All-Star in the NBA, his career with the Chicago Bulls, the San Antonio Spurs, and even had an opportunity to finish up in really an intriguing final season, to say the least, of the NBA, where he got to spend time back in Chicago with Michael Jordan, and then with a friend of longstanding one, Larry Bird. Artis, as we do here on The Games People Play, is pretty much our mode. The stories have a beginning, and your beginning, born in 1949, and once again, the similarities to recent guest Spencer Hayward. They talk about the 20th century as the American century. Post-war prosperity in America is often the topic that we get in the history books, but that wasn't the story for all Americans. And your upbringing in Chipley, Florida, was one that was very hard and challenging.
Absolutely, very difficult. Grew up in a very large family. My mother and father my father had no education whatsoever. My mother had probably 2nd grade. And normally in those days with a large family, no jobs, not very much to find a way to, and of course my father was much older as well than my mother. So that made it even more of a challenge for him to find ways to provide for his family. But as you indicated before, it was nothing less than just an extraordinary challenge.
Your early years in Chipley, rural community, Florida Panhandle, about roughly halfway between Pensacola and in Tallahassee, in that area of Florida. And they mentioned large family, 1 of 10 children. One was lost. So you grew up with 9 children. There was 6 boys and 2 girls in the family with yourself. You're one of the oldest of the kids. And that certainly, once again, presented some severe economic challenges just to be able to make ends meet and get from day to day.
Absolutely. I cannot emphasize enough what challenges that we as a family experienced. Now, we talked about, you spoke about finding ways to provide for the family. I worked in the watermelon fields, work all day for, they give you $5, and then you had to give them a portion of that back for, food, lunch, and breakfast. And then worked in the cotton fields, stacked peanuts, just a host of things that, you work all day in the cotton fields. You're lucky if you make $2.50. And and then you had to bring those funds home and allow your mom to find some way to do something with them to be able to put something on the table.
Mention about your mom and dad. Your dad, I think I noted in an interview, you say appreciably older. Your dad would be 120 years old this year. So he was born actually in 1900.
Yeah, well, 1900. He, the way my wife would look at it, and she said about 130, but yeah.
130, okay.
About 120.
Yeah.
Because he was born exactly 1900 and July 7th.
Yeah. And you mentioned appreciably older than your mom. Also, there was a little bit of a height discrepancy. Your mother was about 6'2", and your dad was about 5'7". I mean, who could post two up?
And that made it somewhat difficult for her to, find dates that you probably think in terms of appropriate for a lady, because especially somebody her age, because guys, in those days, even now, guys hesitant. They're very hesitant about dating, just walking out with a girl, and you have to look up. And certainly you had to do that with all of my daughters, But
yep.
Yeah, that's an incredible treat for my mom, and but she found this gentleman, Artis Gilmore, and they, for whatever reason, they paired up, and they put an awful lot of youngins in the world.
Indeed they did. We know who won the genetic battle there. Your mom won, because people have been looking up to you ever since, Artis, at 7 foot.
Yeah. My boss said once, with the artists certainly being a part of our team, that makes us literally head and shoulders above the company, the competition.
Indeed, that was the case. And you've certainly talked about, for many, many years, about your mom being a hero, your parents being heroes, strong role models, her raising all the kids with really little or nothing to work with at times. And one particular problem for you, because of your size and your growth, was something, once again, that we all take for granted, with shoes. By the time you were 13, you had about a size 13 shoe. That was a little problematic in Chipley, Florida. You didn't just go down to the Nike store and grab a pair of 13s.
Yeah, and for 13, once I reached the age of 13, there was no way, and of course 14, there was no place to find shoes, and even if there was a location to order shoes or find something that would be available for me to wear, my mother had no money. She had no money to purchase, make those things happen, or to find a location to order shoes. I mean, in Chipley, a little small town Chipley, one stop, like 12 was the max. That was the limit you could wear. There were some other issues even during that time, because when I was growing up on the streets, on our street and our road, they were really unpaved roads. And then a little later, when I reached age about 13 or 14, then they paved those roads and put, it appears they made a mess out of them, but we had to walk on those to school. And certainly we having picking up tar on the bottom of your feet and all over your feet to get to school. So yes, in those days was nothing less than just an extraordinary challenge.
I noted she finally, I guess there were people who were kind of traveling salesmen, and thank goodness there was one that had some 13s for you that finally hooked you up with at least a pair of what they used to call the old tennis shoes.
Yeah, it was ironic that these salespeople, they drive through the neighborhood, they have just a car full of just a assorted of everything. And so this gentleman says, "Lady, I have a pair of shoes, a fit that that young man right there. I think he said boy or whatever during those days. But my mom says, well, I don't have anything. She said, well, lady, I'm through here all the time. Just give me a quarter, 50 cents or whatever, And that's exactly what happened. That presented me with my first pair of shoes to work with. Real cheap shoes. They were called tennis shoes, and actually they had a rubber band across the top and really slick bottom, and you just slide your foot in there inside the shoe without lacing them up or anything like that. But they lasted for a little while because they start ripping on the side, and then you take cardboard box and kind of fill in the side of it to try to preserve it. Some of that, but it continued to, rip forward. But the other thing that this gentleman had in his vehicle was this book. It was called King Size Ink. And I had that book, this book until I graduated probably from Jacksonville University and even an extended period of time through the Kentucky in those years. It was called King Size Ink, and I was able to find shoes in there and order from this magazine.
And be able to stay up, so you had a catalog that you could order from. And even prior to basketball, your first love was football. You were very interested in football at a young age, 13, 14. You're about 6'5" already, but you had a strong interest in playing football.
Yes. But because of segregation in schools and everything, I had a little poor school, and basically you had to purchase your equipment to be able to go out and play, especially shoes, and there was none my size. And so I made an attempt to go out, but that short-lived, very short-lived. So football was out.
Football was out, basketball was in, and quite an odyssey in terms of high school. Rulock High School, Chipley High School for only a week, just to give us some perspective on what was happening in terms of segregation, integration at that time, and eventually you move about 35 miles away to attend high school in the state of Alabama.
Exactly, yes. Spending about a week over at Chipley High School, which was the segregation. The high schools were during that time was just about the verge. It was on the verge of allowing just a very small amount of black kids to attend the local high schools, which was Chipley. And all throughout my whole majority of my entire school years was spent at Rulock High School, which was the black school. And so then after spending very short time over at Chipley High School, recognizing that it was a very poor situation. And so then that's when I was able to move and go to and attend school in Carver High School in Dothan, Alabama. And, what's really funny is I'm cleaning out some storage now, just cleaning up. And I found my diploma, my high school diploma.
Oh.
And I just realized they misspelled my name, Ardis. I said, well, officially I didn't graduate from high school.
Doesn't count.
Yeah. No, but that was really strange looking at that, finding that piece of, well, it's a piece of art.
Exactly. That's one to save. And you briefly, you also went to New York City very briefly before settling back to Alabama. Was that with your whole family at the time?
No, just me.
Just you.
Was there. I had some family members, but I was just independent. And I was able to go there, and I spent a little bit of time in Garden City Park. There was a number of people that was locally from my hometown, Chipley. But I found a little job and was working. And shoot, I remember working in this restaurant. and The Sound of Music was just hit the market, and they were putting a number of people and feeding the individual the people that would enter the restaurant, and then they would send them over right across the street to the movies, The Sound of Music. So I was there for a short period of time before a request came to come by, return to Chipley, Florida. And that was when, just about the time I was invited to come and enter the other school, which was Chipley High School. And after recognizing that was not working very well, probably about after a couple of weeks, that's when I moved to Dothan, Carver High School in Dothan, Alabama.
And Carver High School, you graduated from there. You're about 6'9.5" your senior year. Obviously attracted a lot of attention at that time for the opportunity to play college basketball, but the education at that time maybe not quite what was needed for you to be able to attend a 4-year college, even though there was recruiting interest and so forth. So you ended up at a school in North Carolina, was a 2-year school at the time, was on its way to becoming a 4-year school, but that turned out to be a very fortuitous move to lead to everything that fell into place for the rest of your life, was the chance to go to Gardner-Webb.
That's absolutely correct. I remember playing a number of games with our high school game. We went to Montgomery. We played two or three games during the holidays, and they had all these recruiting coaches. But you're right about the fact that the lack of preparing yourself during the early years, and I remember someone said, "Are you guys going to? Will you probably have an opportunity to attend a college or a collegiate level?" And we said, "Where's my dad and my mom is going to find a dime to be able to put us through school?" So,
right,
the like of that and the preparation, as you indicated before, I selected the junior college, which was Gardner-Webb, and I was there with a really good friend of mine, Ernie Fleming. And then later, they were making efforts to try to encourage he and I to remain there for and be a part of the 4-year institution. And my friend had said to me, "Listen, when I was attending Durfee High School,
Massachusetts, Fall River,
Fall River, Massachusetts. He was very successful, and he said that what I like to do is call Joe Williams. He recruited me earlier, and perhaps that maybe we can put something together." And he would invite us to come to Jacksonville. He had invited me before, so, and that's what he did. He says, "I got this friend I want to bring along with me. His name is Artis Gilmore, and he's 7'2". And it's funny. One of the coaches, he shared his story right now. Ernie wrote this little raggedy note to Tom Wasm and Tom, who was the assistant coach with Joe Williams. He shares this story, and it's really funny to listen to him. It says, by the way, I have this friend of mine. He'd like to come along as well. His name is Artis Gilmore. But anyway, we both decided to come to Jacksonville. And Ernie redshirted that particular year, and it was Chip Dublin, myself, and Pembroke Burrows. Pembroke, whom was 7 foot, and Pembroke and I had played against each other in junior college. He was at Brevard Junior College in Cocoa Beach. And so we all decided to come to JU, and JU had a pretty good nucleus with Von Wedekin, Greg Nelson, Rex Morgan, and Danny Hawkins, Rod McIntyre, Rusty Baldwin. And so with then Joe able to insert myself into that program, and my skills levels. I had started to feel a little bit much more comfortable playing. And that's when things start to move forward and accelerated for me.
Indeed, they did. I love that story about Ernie expressing interest in coming to Jacksonville. But I've got this friend, and a couple of the reports that I saw was the coaching staff at Jacksonville said, "Oh, he's going to want to bring his girlfriend." Oh, geez, another one of those guys. It's a package deal. He's bringing the girlfriend. No, I got this 7'2" guy named Artis Gilmore that I'm going to bring instead. Oh, that's different.
It's really ironic when you share it like that. It sounds like a comedian. Somebody's playing a game, but that's the truth.
Amazing story. Well, one thing, not only the experience at Gardner-Webb, Coach Eddie Holbrook was an early influence, a great program there. You competed for the Junior College National Championship, but also I had a chance, big life-altering event in your life was you met your future wife there.
That's right. And now for 48 years, she's been keeping me around. She came on campus and she was a first cousin of one young lady that was attending Gardner-Webb. Her name was Andrea. And then I said, who? Can you tell me? Oh, she's just in high school. I said, I'd love to meet this lady. And so, and I did. And then we maintained a relationship long distance from Gardner-Webb. And then later we planned a wedding, which was in July 1st. And we've been connected since that time. And that's 48 years.
God bless you. 48 years, five children and grandchildren, and a great family. And you mentioned all the pieces really falling into place there for Jacksonville. You had Rex Morgan was a scoring machine. Dublin was kind of a flashy guy. Burroughs was another. You had, two guys that were almost 7 feet. I guess he was about 6'10". But another factor there also, Artis, was there was no black or white on that team. It was really a school that was pioneering in terms of racially integrating ahead of a lot of schools, ACC, SEC at the time. You guys were way ahead of your time with that Jacksonville program and the great success that you had.
Absolutely. For Jacksonville, that was exceptional. But I look back at Florida State, they were truly a part of the pioneers as well. They had 3 or 4 black athletes on that program, but majority of the schools in the South, they had very little to none black athletes on their program. So that's correct that we were able to come together as a family. Considering, I look back a couple years early, 1968, Martin Luther King had just been assassinated. Just a number of negative things were happening in the country. And for us to be able to put that team together, and Joe Williams and Tom Wasden, that put us in a category that made us really, really special. And with that, with the success that we had, it was able to change the mindset in the community. It just galvanized the entire community. That particular team, the Jacksonville, and the entire state of Florida, this little team moving forward, having the kind of a success that we enjoyed, and we were able to just bring about a unique relationship across the country.
And Coach Williams was certainly a guy that was suited to your personality, despite your intensity on the court. You've always had the reputation to be a little bit more of a laid-back guy, and I know Coach Williams was to your liking. He was a little bit low-key, kind of a player's coach, and apparently made certain concessions for you, just little things. Raised the door of your dorm room for you, important. The legs of the cafeteria tables were altered a little bit, just to make you feel a little bit more at home and a little bit more comfortable as a 7'2" student athlete.
No, that part I love to go along, but those door frames, they were stationary, but the one thing that made a difference is I was able to get a really long 8-foot bed. That was
very important
thing that made a difference for me. It's always made my life comfortable. And then, the cafeteria was a really small place, and they had, I guess, a really tight budget trying to feed everybody. And so the food was kind of limited, and so Joe was able to find a location where he was able to make sure that we were able to get plenty of food to eat. And so in that particular area, that made it really special.
Joe Williams, really a perfect guy to be a little bit more of a free-spirited guy, and had the talent, let the skills of his team really dictate. And what a run you had at Jacksonville, just going back and taking a look at that 1969-70 season and what you were able to accomplish. Still, Artis, the smallest school ever with an enrollment at that time of around 2,000 to play in an NCAA Final Four, and also to average over 100 points a game for that season. Just some remarkable records that you put up. And, it begs the question, the fact that you didn't attend a basketball power per se, maybe an ACC school, more special to you that you look back as somebody that was a pioneer, that wrote their own story, as opposed to maybe continuing the tradition at one of the blue blood programs of college basketball. Is that something that's a little bit more special to you 50 years later as you look back?
Well, no question. It makes it really, really special to look back and review things, historical things that transcended. I look back at Charlie Scott was the first black athlete for University of North Carolina, and Dean Smith, watching Charlie standing in the corner with holding the ball against most teams. And so I don't know, maybe that would have been something, but I don't know if I was that comfortable attending a program. And then, as we spoke about earlier, academically, that was for me as well. So more than likely, I probably would have considered it, but looking back, I don't think the cards were right where they needed to be. Mm-hmm. They were played absolutely correct.
Indeed. Just one loss that season to Florida State. You avenged it later on in the year. And then, if anybody wasn't paying attention, the school that 6 years prior had a recruiting budget of about $250, by the way. That was it. Not much. Not going to get you very far today. Was on a run against these blue blood, these brand name college basketball programs. You played in the regional and knocked off a tremendous Iowa team that had J.J. Johnson, downtown Freddie Brown on a Burroughs tip-in at the buzzer. Iowa was the Big Ten champion. And then a game against Kentucky, which, one of those college basketball games they'll be talking about forever, where you matched up against Dan Issel and came out on top against mighty Kentucky to win that regional, to punch that ticket for the to the Final Four. Your memories of that experience. And, oh, by the way, you had about 5,000 people at the airport when you came back. You guys couldn't even get through the airport in Jacksonville.
Absolutely. What a memorable moment when all these things took place. You mentioned the really big, huge game against Iowa that Pembroke Burroughs was able to – I had fouled out of the ball game. So Pembroke Burroughs were there at the tip. He's the right place, right time, and was able to get the putback. And we found the game, I think, 102 to 103. We ended up winning the ball game right at the buzzer. And then, of course, moving against Kentucky, with you mentioned the fact that Adolph Rupp, he just denied basically any black players from playing in the ACC or
right.
So, he had his rules, regulations. So, in other words, that was kind of special for us to be. Kentucky was ranked number one, I think, at one or two in the country at that time, and we were able to beat them 100-106. Now, how do I remember that particular score? Dan and I, we played together. We talk about it all the time. We had an awful lot of fun sharing those stories. But that was pretty special for us to continue to move forward and played St. Bonaventure after Bob Lanier had received the victory, and then later playing UCLA for the championship. But then, of course, we're returning to Jacksonville and having those huge gatherings of people for all. And that's part of, I think, the things that kind of just galvanized the whole entire community, just brought everybody together. And it made a difference. It really made a difference.
And there was no black or white in Jacksonville. Everybody wanted a ticket to the Coliseum. 9,000 banged out every game. And now Jacksonville, you mentioned you defeat Bob Lanier's team in the semifinal. You had 30 against Kentucky, you had 29 against Bob Lanier. Your memories as you look back, obviously the results were disappointing, that national championship team. UCLA was on that extraordinary run of winning 10 national championships in 13 years under John Wooden. But the bright lights, the experience, Sidney Wicks and Curtis Rowe, the big stars of that UCLA team. And as you look back on that game now, 50 years later, what immediately comes to mind as you think about it? A game where you had the lead early, but you had a Rex Morgan injury in the second half that certainly didn't help any.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about that. I said it was just a unique environment, special for Jacksonville to be have an opportunity to compete at that level.
Right.
But I think, looking back, 50 years later, we just didn't have the experience. It was just that Coach Wooten he was able to make some adjustments, and as you indicated that we were up a little bit. I don't know if we were feeling a little bit overconfident or what, but if I remember the jump center, the first ball, Rex was able to take the ball and drive it straight to the basket and score. So we were feeling really good about it. But as the game continued along, and Coach Wooten realized some of the things, the adjustment that he was able to make, certainly made a difference in the game. And me personally, I look back, I just didn't have enough experience to make adjustments on the floor and to have a much better understanding. I mean, even to this day, I look back and all the success, most of the success, I look at playing the defensive end of the game. I really enjoy playing defense all throughout my career. So as far as during that particular game, being able to make an adjustments on the floor on the fly, I don't think I was prepared to do that.
And would be remiss if we didn't mention a couple of things people have still talked about. Wooden's decision, he put Sidney Wicks on you at 6'8". There was some shot blocks. Maybe a goaltending call was let go, maybe, in terms of the trajectory of your shot. And also the fact that UCLA went to the line 35 times, just 8 for Jacksonville. A little bit about the establishment and the new kid on the block there maybe was at work also, just on the periphery.
You look at, it's amazing.
Not to stir up any trouble, Atis, but I just had to mention that.
And evaluating those statistics, but if I were personally involved in looking at that game today, what was happening to allow the UCLA to get 35 shots to our 10 or 11 was because we were not driving I have a more of an insight of the game today versus that time, why those particular statistics were so unbalanced.
Mm-hmm. And it was still a remarkable story. Jacksonville, once again, tiny Jacksonville, almost a a modern-day Hoosiers. You think of the Hoosiers story of the team coached by Gene Hackman going to the Indiana State Championship. This was a team that went to the national championship.
Yes. And I look back and think about that experience, appearing on that national stage and being able to compete there.
Yep.
It's an indefinite, indelible memory that I will always kind of have an opportunity to reflect on and think about what happened and how it happened, analyze it.
Mm-hmm. And you made the Sports Illustrated. It wasn't in a winning cause, but you made SI Cup. That must have been pretty impressive when you saw you on Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, well, not with sitting away blocking my shot.
That's right. They could have taken a different picture, though.
Yeah, they could have. There were so many in that sequence. You know, naturally, if we would have had the success, total success, that probably would have been a different picture. And that's what they present the winning team on the cover, and that was UCLA.
Indeed. The following year, once again, only 4 losses the following year, but it must have been disappointing for you to be able to know you had another year. It wasn't over in 1970, but the game against Western Kentucky, heartbreaking 2-point loss. Great Western Kentucky team, Clarence Glover, Jim McDaniel, some big stars on that team, and was the last game of your college career, was an early exit in the NCAA tournament. Yes.
We had a little bit of a struggle against Western Kentucky in the beginning of that ball game. And so as we continued on the stretch, it was just like a couple of minutes left. We had left in the ball game, and we actually had possession of the ball, and we went down as we were moving forward. One of our players double dribble, and we gave then all of a sudden we given the ball back to Western Kentucky, and Clarence, what's Clarence's name? I can't remember now. Clarence Glover. Yep. And Jim Rose, you know, he took the ball out of bounds, and Clarence was kneeling it. Just about a year or so ago, we were talking about that, Clarence. And he said that really elevated him up in the draft. But, he cut on the baseline, kneeling on the baseline. He received the ball out of bounds, straight under the basket, and of course everybody was in kind of a disarray because of that turnover that we had just made. So we didn't make adjustments, and they did, and they scored right at the end of the game, and they were able to eliminate we thought was a very powerful Jacksonville University, who had an opportunity to return to the phones on the dance floor and have a little bit more success because of the experience.
Indeed, you had the experience. You went through it for the first time, and then you just never know. You get one and done in single elimination, and unfortunately, the end of your college career. But new opportunities on the horizon to turn professional. And Artis, you were the beneficiary, as the players of your era, of 2 professional leagues at the time. It gave you an option. The NBA, Chicago Bulls had drafted you, but the ABA came knocking with what was a pretty good financial offer for a guy that clearly wanted to take care of his family. So the ABA looked like the most viable option for you at the time, and you took that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly the reason, because we had talked about earlier what the challenges were during the time of my early childhood. And so I had, after my departure and preparing to play at the professional level, my siblings were still at the home experiencing that really challenging environment. Yep. So that decision allowed me to make in order to be able to provide some things for them. And one of the other things they guaranteed my contract, to the point they said, well, listen, the most important thing is if you injure yourself, this is going to continue to be available to you. So that was the punchline. That was a selling point.
10 years, $2.5 million. Awful lot of money. You're looking at the max deals that have been going down in the last few days for $190 million, but in the terms of 1970, circa 1970, 50 years ago, it was a lot of money. It was guaranteed money for you. And it was a really serious challenge. Maybe the most serious challenge for the ABA was being able to secure Artis Gilmore. I mean, the ABA had the reputation, wide open, fast-paced style of play, run and gun. The NBA was the big man's league. Now, the ABA really got into the NBA's turf by taking a premier big man and bringing in Artis Gilmore. That was a huge move for them, which they were very happy to be able to secure your services as a league, let alone as a team.
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, the signing of Julius Erving, the doctor, I think initially he really wanted to sign with the Nets because, he was from Long Island. He wanted to be a part of that area. And I think Lou Konisaka, who was the coach, basically just kind of blew him off. He signed with Virginia. And
right.
Boy, did he elevate his game and move forward. But we, including myself, that group and that class of athletes signing with the ABA certainly had a significant impact.
Recent guest once again was Spencer Haywood, and you and many owe that debt of gratitude to Spencer Haywood as the guy that was the first guy to be able to break that NBA barrier of signing early, in your case, in the case of hundreds of others that have followed.
Yeah, well, most individuals could. They were able to sign, but it was the high school kids. And of course, you're right to the extent that you had to be 4 years out of school or you graduating class. And that was the things that Spencer Haywood was able to bring to the Supreme Court and change.
And your opportunity in the ABA, I went back, I looked at they were so happy to bring you in. They had the press conference in New York. They talked about the fact that you were actually 7'8", from the soles of your platform shoes to the top of your afro at that time, just to emphasize the point.
You see this afro, yeah, you like this one.
I also noted that when they asked you about why you made the move, you had do you remember your deadpan response about why you wanted to play in the ABA?
Like the color of the basketball.
Exactly. A true American, you like the red, white, and blue ball.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the quick answer that I had to keep the wolves away because, the next one, that was the feeder line. And the next one, why did you sign with the ABA? And a number of people were really frustrated with that decision, but
right.
It was the best thing.
So Artis grabbed the red, white, and blue ball and began his professional basketball career, joining the ABA's Kentucky Colonels, concluding part one of Artis Gilmore Week on the games people play. Vintage Brand is the story of American sporting culture, combining our rich history, traditions, rituals, and pageantry. Weaving together more than a century of American sports memories and images, it defines what tradition really means. Come experience the history and rituals. Remember and honor the legends. Feel the passion and pageantry of the past. Welcome to the greatest collection of American sports history and images, all reproduced on fan apparel and merchandise. Welcome to Vintage Brand.